Hello, and today I just wanted to talk about should you be playing the Necro in Season 1, just to give you an intro to the class if maybe you haven't played a whole lot yet, haven't tried out the class, if you're trying to decide what class you do want to go into Season 1 with. So first thing I'm going to say about the Necro is it has a pretty great leveling experience. It does not really require any legendaries, to be quite frank with you, in order to function and in order to kill stuff compared to other classes where they typically need something or other in order to function. Not only that, you can play the Necro virtually any way you want, leveling up, and it'll probably be fine. The only thing I will say is that the minions are not particularly great right now, and until you have the things that give your minions damage reduction, it can start to feel kind of hard to keep them alive once you start to get around level 30, which kind of sucks. But that being said, there are a lot of different build diversity at the end game. The class overall feels pretty good to play. You can play it a bunch of different ways, and it has a couple of pretty good leveling builds. Like, for example, you can play Sever. You can do a Sever leveling build, which is then going to translate pretty dang good into a Sever in-game build, which then can also then translate pretty good into the Infinimist Necro or the Shadow Mist Necro, whatever you want to call it. Build, which is a very, very good high tier pushing build, as well as you can play the Bone Spear, which is also another really good high tier Nightmare Dungeon pushing build. I think Bone Spear right now is considered to be the best Necro build because it just has the best stats in terms of vulnerability and stuff like that. Blood is a little bit worse, however, there is some interesting things, like for example, there's people that do a like Bone Spirit Blood Orb, you know, like Uber Lilith killing build and stuff like that. So Blood is not totally out of contention. It's just probably the worst out of the three at the end game. That being said, there are different ways to make any build work. So I'm definitely not saying it's unplayable or anything like that. Every single spec is playable, especially at the end game for the Necro. The Necro overall is a pretty great class, I think. But the Bone Spear, I think Bone Spear and then the Shadow Mist build are probably going to be the two best builds that you're going to be looking at if you're going to want to do high tier pushes at the end game. So, you know, thinking about, you know, what kind of build do you want to be able to play and actually push at the end game. Now, keep in mind, this is before we know what the Malignant Hearts do. So this is all assuming that, you know, the Malignant Hearts do not change anything that much, and the Malignant Heart stuff could completely, there's going to be new uniques added, new legendary aspects added, so the whole entire meta could get shaken up. I'm just giving you, you know, with what we know now, you know, this is kind of what you're looking at going into Season 1. You know, so if you're not a fan of Bone Spear, if you're not a fan of, like, you know, Blood Mist, which is, you'll see the Blood Mist built here in a second, just so you can kind of get an idea of at least one of the higher push builds and how it works. But if you're not a fan of like Blood Mist and stuff like that, and also they lack movement speed, so if you want a class that is very speedy, I'm not sure that I would recommend the Necro. They don't really have a whole lot of access to movement speed in comparison to like the Barb, Druid, Sorcerer, or Rogue. You know, like Rogue has dashes, the Druid has, you know, like Dire Wolf's aspect, it's like Stormclaw build where you're just kind of blinking around and stuff like that. Whirlwind Barb just moves at Mach 20 because of the shouts and all that stuff. But this is definitely going to be the slowest class, so if you're looking for a speedy class, maybe this isn't for you. But overall, the class is pretty fun. So with that being said, you know, which really there isn't a whole lot to be said about it, because the Necro really is just, it's not very legendary reliant. It really is a good class to start. I think the only downside being is it's not the fastest class, but in terms of leveling experience and stuff like that, you're going to have a pretty good time with the leveling experience, I think, on the Necro, whereas comparison to like a Barbarian, for example, there's a lot of downsides to talk about and stuff like that, but with the Necro, it's kind of just, you know, do whatever you want, and you'll probably be fine because the class just has a good leveling experience. But anyways, so that's really all I have to say about the Necro currently. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this dungeon for you, just so you can get a little bit of an idea of what the in game on the Necro can potentially look like if you decide to do like the Shadow Mist build, etc., stuff like that. And it's pretty much this, right? This is really just the build. You kind of walk around, you make things vulnerable with Corpse Tendrils, you throw Decrepify on things, And what that does is it gives you a chance to reduce the cooldown, so then you can see that I'm just already in Blood Mist and it's already off cooldown again. So that's kind of the way this works. It's pretty solid. You're going to be able to punch up quite a bit higher. I think I'm fighting level 84s right now. And I'm only level 76, which is kind of an upside, I guess, to the Necros, that you will be able to punch up a decent amount higher with a lot of their builds. But that being said, I will say this when it comes to thinking about, like which builds and stuff you want to play. A lot of the time, what you're going to be doing is EXP farming. So, in terms of like when you're leveling, being able to like go like 10 levels higher doesn't matter that much, because you're not actually getting that much of an EXP increase. It falls off after about 3 levels higher, so it's not like I'm getting any crazy benefit by going like level 84, other than, it's just, other than I guess ego boost maybe of just being able to go that high, right? Something like that. Yeah, and I guess, given that Bone Spear and the Shadow Mist builds are kind of like the best push builds right now, I think, for the Necro, I guess some people could consider that a downside, that there's not like a crazy amount of build diversity in game. But at the same time, you can still play other things. It's just a matter of how far can you go, right? Like it's not like you can't do other builds. It's just these builds are generally speaking probably gonna go the furthest with I guess the lowest amount of effort compared to other builds, because there's definitely new builds popping up all the time, and I'm pretty interested to see what the Malignant Heart stuff is. I know the new legendary aspect for the Druid got spoiled, and that's really been about it for that. And that was kind of, unfortunately, that one was kind of a letdown. It was like, God, I think it was like whenever you use Poison Creeper, it puts Landslide in a circle, which is cool because, like it gives Poison Creeper like an actual like legendary, but at the same time, it's like, dang, just more Earth stuff. I'm hoping that with the Malignant Hearts, they add in a little bit more companion stuff here. But we'll see. But anyways, yeah. But anyways, this is pretty much what you're looking at with the Necro with this build. Hopefully this has helped you at least a little bit become a little bit more informed on what you're looking at in terms of the Necro and what you can kind of expect and what people are probably going to be doing depending on how things go. One last note I will say about this, it's also pretty cool, is they're not very reliant on, really don't have to use any uniques at all on them. I use this one, but it's more of like a quality of life thing as opposed to an actual, like, you absolutely need to have this. So if you are looking for a class that does not need a bunch of uniques in order to function, this class is definitely for you. Alright, well that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.